Hey, it's Max. If you told me 2 weeks ago that I would have this, I would have laughed. It is of course a wooden tram made by LEGO in the 40s and 50s, which, last I checked, makes it slightly older than me. To no one's surprise, the wooden trams are certainly LEGO's rarest trams, unless you want the sticker sheet for 8404 of course, so when I got the opportunity to borrow one, it was quite the moment. I can now actually claim to have every LEGO tram, which means I can create this incredible, likely one-of-a-kind lineup. If you want to see the other trams in more detail, you can check out the previous 2 videos. So, the tram. LEGO originally sold it as a set with 2 carriages, but I only have one here. At first I assumed it was a trailer, but as it turns out it's a motor with its trolley pole missing. I don't know what happened to the carriage's partner, more on that later though. These weren't sold in Australia, so the fact that this is here at all is remarkable in of itself. I'm led to believe that this is one of 2 in the country, but I can't say that with any certainty. When I was making the last video, I must say I imagined it would be a fair bit bigger than it is, but it's still nothing to scoff at. Compared to LEGO's brick-built trams, it's on the smaller side, and if you pit it up against what I replaced it with in the last video, it could probably fit inside given the chance. Comparing it to the dimensions given on miniland.nl, the tram has been recorded fairly accurately, within tolerances of a few millimeters, assuming of course it's talking about this particular design. You see, the only problem with claiming that I now have every LEGO tram is that I can't. As I addressed in the second part, LEGO actually made 3 wooden trams. However, they all appear to be extremely similar in design, so I have reason to believe it's the same sort of situation as LEGO re-releasing the same set with some design changes. Let's go with the narrative that there were 3 wooden tram types for now, but were there more? Since the last video, I found a 4th wooden tram on LEGO's own website. 2 of the 3 trams are nowhere to be seen, which reinforces my theory, but this new resource could explain why there isn't an accompanying trailer car for this one. LEGO being a Danish company, searching the English term tram comes up with a lot of extra stuff. Searching sporvogn, pardon my French, filters to just the actual trams, and when we do, it comes up with 4 entries, but not what you might expect. The first one is a tram from 1932 and looks distinct from the others listed on Miniland. I don't have any other information on it, so I'll just leave it at that. The next entry is the full set for the tram that I have here, product number 412, but the other 2 entries aren't the others listed on Miniland. Instead, they are the individual carriages for 412, listed as 412/1 and 412/2. The website doesn't make clear what this means, so it could be one of a few things. The first is that every separable item is listed as what product they came in, as well as separate entries for their constituent parts. But that is quickly disproven by 412 being the only example of this that I can find. Another explanation, which makes way more sense, is that the tram was sold both as a set and individually, something akin to the newer Santa Fe or My Own Train series of sets. Anyway, the implications of this is that the motor could have originally been sold in a set, but it also could have been sold individually. Both of these possibilities are plausible, and as far as I can tell there aren't any distinguishing characteristics between individually sold ones and sets. I was pretty close in calling the carriages motor and trailer, but I didn't hit the money. Officially, they are known as front and trailer carriages, or for a more literal translation according to LEGO, 4-carriage and trailer. Most products on the system have alternative product numbers. In the case of 412, it's 1402, 1402F, and 1402B. I have to assume that the F and B stand for front and back, or a Danish equivalent, which, thanks to my surface level research using Google Translate, I can determine to be front and behind, but in Danish. Why you'd want to know that is anyone's guess. Language barriers aside, what is the condition of the front carriage that I have? Unsurprisingly, it isn't in mint condition, but come on, that doesn't stop it being amazing. Some of the wear includes the usual paint flaking and a missing chunk out of one of its bumpers, which is where a hook would be to attach it to the trailer carriage. Like the trolley pole, the hook on the other bumper has also been lost, but unlike the other end, it left behind its connection point. I find it interesting that front carriages had a hook on both ends, but trailers appear to only have had one on the front. I'd see this as an oversight, because, and hear me out here, what if you want to have 2 trailers? Crazy thought, I know. Other than those fairly minor defects for an 8-decade-old product, the rest of the tram is miraculously intact. The wheels are all still attached and even spin, even if they aren't in the best condition, but I don't want to encourage any more undue wear to them, so I'll refrain from touching them. With a newfound reason to think about the wooden trams, I've had another crack at designing a brick-built one from scratch, since the last one hit a dead end. If anything, I was designing a trailer carriage to go with the motor. I did this in about an hour, so it's really cobbled together, but I just wanted to get something done for it. Since I only received the tram a few days ago at the time of release, I haven't had the opportunity to build it, and like my last attempt, I doubt I ever will, so bear with me while I briefly go through it on Bricklink Studio. I started completely from scratch, figuring out the target dimensions, because if for some reason I do ever build it, I want it to be as close in size to the real thing. I couldn't let up an opportunity to use the real wooden tram to assist with designing the brick-built one, and it came in extremely helpful in refining the dimensions. Almost all of them unfortunately landed on half studs, so I rounded, in most cases up. This means that it's slightly bigger than its wooden counterpart, but it's not too bad. Side note, because I couldn't integrate it into the script earlier, the length and width are about as stated on Miniland, however, the height doesn't seem to include the wheels, and certainly doesn't include the trolley pole. I ended up landing on 6 wide for the body, and initially started building out the base with the wheels to the same width, knowing full well that it should be narrower. After quickly regretting that decision, I slimmed down the wheel assembly to 5 studs wide. The height should be a plate shorter, but I needed the snot, stud is not on top, sides to fit the wheels in, and those only worked with a 5-plate height. I wanted it to be able to run on tracks, and deciding between train and tram wheels was difficult because the wooden ones are somewhere in between. The tram wheels are for some reason available in medium azure, which is a fairly close colour match to the wooden ones, so I went with those, even if the train wheels are probably closer in size. For the gauge, I went with the middle child gauge I'm using for my own tram mocks, which is surprisingly close to the width between the wheels on the wooden tram, although those aren't flanged, so it's not all that comparable. I offset the frame onto large 6x plates and built up the bump blocks underneath each end. These are as clean as I could get them in as short an amount of time as possible, while still being buildable without any modified bricks. From there, I built up the walls. I considered doing some fancy snot action to get the red trim around the windows and doors, but that just didn't seem worth the effort. For the doors, it initially did seem worth the effort to go for snot, but I quickly readjusted them to be brick built. If I was to build this, it would need to be spruced up big time with some pinstriping, especially to get the double door effect. The windows should be around 1.5, 4 and 3 studs wide respectively, but for obvious reasons I couldn't get the narrower one to be 1.5 wide, and because of the thick gap between all of the windows, I had to thin down the 4 and 3 wide ones. I angled the 3 wide one with normal 2x2/1x4 hinge plates. I did the windows on the front and back with simple 1x2 bricks, but getting the transition between the angled walls and the windows was nigh on impossible. I hate the solution I came up with, and I'll leave it at that. For the roof, I simply did 2x curved slopes topped with a 2x raised section. At the ends of the raised section, I got lazy and just added semicircle tiles, because that was the best way to capture the shape while still being structurally not about to collapse at the thought of it. I like my solution on my older design more, but I just couldn't be bothered getting it to work on the new one. And that's about all there is to talk about with my second attempt, and just about everything I have to say about the wooden tram as well. I cannot express how grateful I am to have been given this opportunity. It has definitely topped 2025 for me. I have some great stuff coming out on this channel for the next few weeks that's not quite as glorious, but it's still amazing nonetheless. If you want to see what said stuff is, why not subscribe? And if you want early access, sneak peeks, and other perks, become a member. Huge thanks to Jay and Victorian Transport History for your support. Thanks for watching, see you next time.